In this video, we're going to be talking about a giant storm coming with serious flooding, up to 80-mile-per-hour winds, heavy snowfall, a major hurricane, and a potential tornado outbreak. So if you're new to the channel, click the subscribe button and notification bell to get all my daily updates to keep you ahead of the storm. So let's get right to it. We got a lot to talk about. It's going to be a very active week in the weather department. We got a lot to go over. This is your Saturday, October 23rd update. What we're looking at here is the jet stream, and this is a powerful jet stream. This is about as intense as it gets. It's 226 knots. That's up to 260-mile-per-hour jet stream coming out of the Bering Sea into the Gulf of Alaska. That's pumping all the energy into California, Northern California, and into the United States, where we're going to have multiple rounds of severe weather that we're going to have to be dealing with over the course of the week. So let's take a look at the overall hazard maps, because we do have some frost advisories in and around Iowa here. You get into the northern ports of Illinois as well as Wisconsin. We also have some dense fog advisories too. That's an indication where the winds are starting to turn around. There's a little bit more moisture to work with. And as this jet stream comes across, that's going to set the stage for severe weather, and that actually starts today, and we'll go over that as well. But we also have those gale warnings and those hazardous sea warnings out off the coast of the West Pacific for dangerous swells, 50+ foot waves offshore. It's a dangerous hazardous sea advisory, and then gale warnings of 35-foot waves closer to shore. And then that high wind potential as you get inland into Northern California, as well as Oregon and Nevada, as well as Utah. And then those flash flood watches into Northern California, where we could be looking at some serious flooding starting tomorrow. So we'll definitely go over that as well. But today we've got some severe weather to deal with into portions of Kansas as well as Missouri, where the Storm Prediction Center has highlighted a slight risk for severe weather. I kind of broke it off in all four parts here. This is the tornado outlook. Here is your hail outlook as well as your wind outlook. So your main threat for today is gonna be your hail, some large hail out of these storms in and around the portions of Kansas here, northern Missouri, as well as southern Iowa for some strong to severe thunderstorms. You could still be looking at some marginal storms in and around into southern Kansas as well as central Missouri as well. So definitely be on the lookout for that. But you do still have that marginal risk for an isolated tornado threat, as well as some elevated winds of 60+ mile per hour. And that'll be setting the stage for later on this afternoon into the evening hours. So, but as we take a look at tomorrow's view, check out the jet stream, what happens overnight. This thing rapidly deepens. Today, it's just a 992 open wave, nothing to be concerned about, right? But overnight, this thing rapidly deepens to a 941 millibar low pressure. It's not a tropical feature, it's an extra tropical feature, and it goes through what they call a bomb cyclone process, where it drops more than 24 millibars in a 24-hour time span. In fact, it doubles that to qualify for a super bomb. This is a very rare event. In fact, it's so rare in this part of the country, this has not happened in the last 71 years. So this is a very intense storm, as that powerful jet will be dipping down throughout the day. And then tomorrow, that'll pump all the energy into the West Coast region with those very high winds, dangerous swells, and some very excessive rainfall that will go over. But all that energy just filters into the United States, coming across with a very powerful jet stream. And that's going to set the stage for multiple rounds of severe weather that we'll highlight. But let's take a look at the overall precipitable water imagery here. You can see the feed of what they call the atmospheric river of moisture just feeding, pumping in, taking advantage of this warm blob out here in the Pacific. It's picking up this, like siphoning it in and pumping it into California. That's going to bring some excessive rainfall for that region. Notice all the reds down here in Mexico. That is Tropical Storm Rick that actually formed yesterday, and it's rapidly intensifying as well. And then we have all the reds down here in the Caribbean, where it's starting to get its act together. But notice the yellows and greens here. That's the surge coming out of the in parts of the Pacific as well as the Gulf here. That's the tropical moisture that's going to be pumping into the system as this powerful jet comes across, and that's going to set the stage for multiple rounds of severe weather. But today, check out Rick. This is really trying to get its act together. It's already a strong tropical storm of 70 miles an hour as it's rapidly intensifying as we speak. It's moving north-northwest at 6 miles an hour. In fact, the latest outlook from the National Hurricane Center takes it up to a major hurricane already by the time we get into Sunday afternoon as it moves inland and makes impact landfall as a hurricane, or if not a major hurricane. And that's why they already have hurricane watches out here off the coast of Mexico. So yes, imagine you got a major hurricane potential hitting Mexico with all that energy filtering into the US. And then you have that other system, a 941 millibar, filtering all that energy off the west. All that energy is going to collide into the US, setting the stage for multiple rounds of severe weather. So let's take a look at the overall Weather Prediction Center outlook for tomorrow, because this gets serious, folks. For Northern California, I showed you the stream of precipitation that's going to be impacting Northern California. In fact, they have already set out a very rare high risk flood warning out here for excessive rainfall. Typically, when you see a higher risk, that's calling for double-digit rainfall in an area that just has not seen any rain in months. This is a dangerous setup. In fact, 41% of all weather-related flood deaths happen on high-risk days. Do take this seriously. That's why you see this all the time. When it's flooded, turn around, don't turn around, don't drown. They mean that in a big way. This is a serious flash flooding potential that's on the table for Northern California starting tomorrow. So it's one of those things, hey, if you could just stay home all day, I would highly advise it. You know, less people on the road, the better. If you see any water that you can't see the bottom of the road, do not cross it. It only takes 6 inches to hydroplane your vehicle and sending it down shore. So it's not worth it, guys. So do take this seriously. This is a dangerous, serious flash flooding setup potential on the table with moderate and high risk potential coming in over a 24-hour period for tomorrow going into Sunday night. And we do have some excessive rainfall potentials into Illinois as well as Indiana. But here's the setup for tomorrow. We're looking at an atmosphere that only typically can handle about a ½ inch per hour. The atmosphere is calling for 1.6 inches per hour potential. That would be record type territory. And the fact the latest HRRR model has isolated potentials of 16 inches of rainfall over a 24-hour period. That is very excessive. These are areas that hasn't seen a drop. Places like Sacramento just got their first rain in 212 days. The ground is extremely dry in this region. So with all this heavy precipitation coming in all at once, this could be a serious flash flooding threat coming up on the day for tomorrow, getting into tomorrow night for the Northern California region. So as we move into that Sunday as well, the Storm Prediction Center already has highlighted an enhanced risk for severe weather for places into St. Louis, get places into Springfield, Missouri, as we all have another potential of a very serious severe threat coming up on the table on Sunday. And in fact, they already have a 10% hatched risk for that potential EF2 type tornadoes in this region in and around the St. Louis area into central Missouri. So this is another dangerous setup, and this is your wind threat too, with those 80+ mile per hour wind potential as these systems really rapidly intensify with that jet stream coming in overhead. So we're also looking at a pretty significant hail threat as well, as it feeds all the way down into portions of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, going into Arkansas, going into portions of Illinois. So this is another threat that's very serious that's on the table for Sunday. There's your tornado parameters coming up in the early afternoon hours. This is about 6-7 o'clock. This is when we can see large supercell thunderstorms breaking out with that tornado potential here's your tornado parameters of hitting 6, 7s, and 8s. That is very high in this area, and that's why the Storm Prediction Center already has that 10% chance of that hatch-risk zone for those potential tornadoes. So as we get into Tuesday, with that super bomb coming in off the coast, this is the 500 millibar again, and it splits and negatively tilts. When it negatively tilts, that creates the split in the atmosphere. You got winds screaming in from the west. You've got winds screaming in from the south on the 850 millibar. I showed you the moisture from Rick, right? Here's the wind direction. Check out the wind directions as this will be pumping in the moisture from Rick, combining with that jet stream coming across. That is going to set the stage for yet another dangerous round for severe weather coming into parts of Texas, into Oklahoma, into Kansas, and that'll be coming up on the day on Tuesday. So here's the setup with this on the relative humidity index. You've got all this humidity down here. You can see the chart here. This is basically showing where there's moisture in the atmosphere locked and loaded over portions off the west coast here. But all this energy from Rick, as it rapidly disintegrates over Mexico, it's going to transfer all that energy and pump in all that moisture into Texas again. Is going to help feed this system in the upper levels. So that's where it's going to be fueling that severe threat coming up on the day on Tuesday. In fact, the Storm Prediction Center has already highlighted a slight risk. This is day 4, guys. This is day 4. So this is very rare to see. This is probably going to be enhanced with everything that I'm showing you that's on the table, going to enhance, if not potentially moderate, coming up on Tuesday. But right now they have that slight risk for severe weather for the Dallas-Fort Worth area, into Fort Worth, going into Oklahoma City, into Tulsa, into Arlington. Of all those areas could be under the gun for yet another round for severe weather. And we're not done, guys. It's a very active week ahead. That powerful jet just continues to dip. This is almost a classic tornado type setup. This powerful jet screams at 150. That's 150, 160 mile per hour for the portions of the deep south. That's going to set the stage for more rounds of severe weather and more tornado potential for the Dixie Alley area into southern Alabama, getting into portions of New Orleans. That'll be coming up on the day on Wednesday. You're talking October 27th time frame, into Baton Rouge, going into Mobile, Alabama, into Jackson, Mississippi. All these areas will be under the gun for a dangerous setup for severe weather by the time we get into that Wednesday time frame. 5 days out, they're already highlighting a slight risk. So that's why they have pretty good confidence. This is what's going to happen, what I've been showing you that's on the table with all these dynamics coming together all at once. So as we move, we're not done. You got a major hurricane of Rick. Now we're looking at the Caribbean because it's still hurricane season. And now we're getting the Caribbean going to be active. So as we get into that October 27th timeframe, going towards Halloween, we're probably going to be seeing Wanda coming out of the Caribbean. As the latest European guidance, the Climate Prediction Center has a moderate risk for development during that time frame. The latest GFS ensembles have multiple low pressures trying to form into the southern Caribbean region. So more than likely, we're going to be seeing Wanda coming out of the Caribbean as we get closer towards that end of the October, towards Halloween time frame. But to the north, we're not done. Here's the setup as we get towards the end of the month, because it's been very quiet in the Northeast. We had that trough that's still been locked and loaded over the Southeast. And that ridge, it's finally going to lift to the north. We got a ridge building back in from the west coast. That dangerous trough will be lifting off from the southeast towards the coastal regions. You see this trough out here to the right. That's going to keep it a little bit closer to the coastline here. As this ridge is able to lift further off to the north, that's going to be able to push this system towards the northeast and going to be impacting that region as we get into the day on Friday, into that Saturday time frame. Because as we get into next weekend, into Saturday, we could be looking at a coastal hugger for the Northeast. It's not cold enough to snow or anything like that, but this is going to be another potential dangerous flash flooding setup as we get pulling all that deep tropical moisture off the Northeast coast, with all these warm temperatures setting up these sea surface temperatures right along the coastal regions. So this area right here into the Northeast could be looking at some more flooding on the table. This is not until we get into next weekend. So here's the rain setup. So you got all that rain coming in off the West Pacific with double-digit potential rainfall. Places like Seattle, places like Portland, we're talking 4 to 6 inches over the next 7 days, highlighting areas in the Northern California region. Isolated amounts I showed you on the latest high resolution models could be up to double digits, potentially between 14 and 17 inches. And that's just coming up in a 24-hour time span, creating that dangerous flash flooding setup. As these multiple systems come across, that's pulling the deep tropical moisture from Rick. We got all that tropical moisture in the Caribbean. That's going to spread inland into Oklahoma, into Kansas, parts of Louisiana and Arkansas, Missouri. That's going to spread across into the Ohio Valley. And then that system finally starting to wind down, it's going to move up the eastern shore. And then that could be setting the stage for a dangerous flash flooding setup for them in portions of the Northeast. So it all depends on the track of that low, because right now it's in the Bering Sea, but this, you can see it coming across, and that could be all ending with the potential nor'easter as we get into that Friday into next weekend time frame, with some major flooding potentially on the table for portions of the Northeast. And then there's the snow between now and then, with heavy snowfall, with all that moisture where it's going to be cold enough, it's going to be snowing, very heavy snow in the upper levels, especially in the mountain regions. We could be looking at 5 feet in portions of the California mountains here into British Columbia, as well as heavier amounts of snow in and around the Idaho area, portions of Montana, getting into Wyoming, and then west of Denver again into the foothills around that region. So man, there's a lot to cover, guys. It's a very active week ahead in the weather department. Stay with me. I'll do the best I can to keep you ahead of the storm. Do take this storm seriously. I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video. Definitely catch me in the next video where I protect you before and after the storm.